A black car moves slowly through the streets of Houston on a quiet Tuesday night. The city lights are blurred through the rain on the window. Inside the back seat, a young woman in an expensive dress is sitting completely still, staring at nothing, with tears running silently down her face. She is not making a sound. She is just falling apart, quietly, the way people do when they have been holding themselves together for too long, and they simply cannot do it anymore. The man behind the wheel listens. He does not say anything right away. He just reaches forward and turns the music down a little lower. And then, after a long moment, he says, "I don't have to take you home right now if you don't want to go home." She looks up, and for the first time in months, someone has said something to her that feels like it was meant for her. Not for the version of her that looks good at dinner parties. Not for the version of her that is supposed to smile and nod and be grateful. For her, the actual her. Sitting in the back seat with mascara on her cheeks and a heart that is slowly giving up. She says, "Okay, that one word. That single okay." Was the beginning of the most unexpected love story I have ever come across. And before this video ends, you are going to understand exactly why. Because what this woman did not know that night, what she had absolutely no way of knowing, was that the quiet man driving her through the rain was not who she thought he was, not even close. And 7 years later, on an ordinary Tuesday evening in October, she was going to find a box hidden behind a shelf in her own home, and everything she thought she understood about her life, about her marriage, about the man she had chosen, was going to completely fall apart and rebuild itself into something more beautiful than anything she could have planned. This is Evergleam Stories, and today I am going to tell you the story of Sophia and Daniel. A story about what real love actually looks like when it is not performing for anyone, when it is just showing up quietly every single day without ever asking to be noticed. Before we begin, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the bell because you do not want to miss what is coming. Stay with me, because this one is going to stay with you. Sophia Reyes was 26 years old and, from the outside, her life looked like everything a person could want. She was engaged to Carter Flynn, a name that carried real weight in Houston. His family had been in real estate for 3 generations. He was tall and polished and said all the right things to all the right people. He drove cars that turned heads. He wore suits that never wrinkled. He was exactly the kind of man that mothers point to when they are telling their daughters what success looks like. But here is the thing about lives that look perfect from the outside. You have to live them. From the inside. And from the inside, Sophia's life with Carter felt like standing in a beautiful room with no air in it. Carter was not loud. That was the thing people never understood when Sophia tried to explain it later. He never screamed. He never threw things. He never did anything that you could point to and say, "Look, that is the problem." He was the kind of controlling that hides inside politeness, the kind that makes you question yourself instead of questioning him. He would look at what she ordered at a restaurant and say something like, "Are you sure you want that?" with a small smile that somehow made her feel foolish for wanting it. He would see her getting ready to go out and say, "That dress is interesting," in a tone that meant the opposite. And whenever she disagreed with him in front of other people, he would go quiet. Not angry quiet, just cold. The kind of cold that fills a room and makes everyone uncomfortable and makes you feel like you did something wrong simply by having a different opinion. She had told her mother once that she was not happy. Just once. Her mother had looked at her the way people look at someone who is being ungrateful for something valuable and said, "Sophia, nobody is happy every day. Carter is a good man from a good family, and you are lucky, and I need you to remember that." So she remembered it. She told herself she was lucky every morning the way you tell yourself something enough times hoping it will eventually feel true. And the wedding date got closer, and the dress was fitted, and the venue was booked, and everyone around her was moving forward with so much momentum that stopping felt impossible, like trying to stop a train with your hands. 3 weeks before the wedding, she went to a dinner at the Flynn family home. Carter's parents, two family friends, the kind of evening where everything is elegant and nothing is real. She sat at that table and she smiled and she nodded and she said the right things. And then Carter made a joke about her. Something small. Something that was technically just teasing. And everyone laughed, and she laughed too, and something inside her went very quiet. Not sad, not angry, just quiet, like a light going out in a room that nobody was using anyway. Daniel picked her up that night. Carter was staying behind with his parents to talk business. She got into the back seat and the door closed and the city started moving past the windows and she did not say anything for a dune. The music was low, the car was warm, and then without deciding to, without any warning at all, she started crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. The way you cry when you are not even sure exactly what you are crying about. When it is not one thing, but everything. When you have been holding a weight for so long that your arms finally just give out. Daniel did not say anything for a moment. He did not reach back and pat her hand. He did not tell her everything was going to be okay. He just reached forward and turned the music down a little lower. And then he said, I do not have to take you home right now if you do not want to go. Home. There is a diner about 10 minutes from here. Good pie. I stop there sometimes after late shifts. We do not have to go, but the option is there. She almost said no, but she looked out the window at the city going by and thought about her apartment and the silence in it and the wedding binder sitting on her kitchen counter with all its color-coded tabs. And she said, okay. They sat in that diner for almost 2 hours. She had cherry pie, he had coffee, and they talked the way two people talk when neither of them is performing for anyone, about real things, about her childhood in San Antonio and how she used to draw gardens in her notebooks when she was supposed to be paying attention in class, about his parents who had come from Mexico before he was born and worked 6 days a week their entire lives and never once complained about it in front of their children, about what she had wanted to be, a landscape architect, a dream she had, put down somewhere along the way and not quite found again, about what he wanted, which he said was simply to build something of his own someday, though he was still figuring out what that meant exactly. She went home that night feeling more like herself than she had felt in months, and that feeling scared her more than anything Carter had ever said to her. She found reasons to ride alone 2 more times that week. Once they walked through a park near the car service office and talked until it got dark. Once they sat in a coffee shop near his apartment for 3 hours, and she did not want to leave. Nothing happened between them. No line was crossed that could be named, but something was building. Something honest and simple and completely unlike the life she was moving toward. 4 days before the wedding, she left her phone on Carter's kitchen counter while she was in the other room. When she came back, he was holding it. His face was completely still, not angry, still, the way very cold water is still. He had read everything. What followed was the worst hour of her life. He sat across from her and read her messages out loud, one by one, in that very calm, even voice of his. He did not yell. He did not break anything. He just told her, in complete sentences and a reasonable tone, exactly what he thought of her. And then he told her that the wedding was going to happen as planned, because too many people were involved and too many deposits had been paid, and this was not something that was going to fall apart because she had confused herself about a driver. He said the word driver, the way some people say a word they find beneath them. She drove herself home. She went to her apartment, and she sat on the bathroom floor with her back against the tub, and she stayed there for a long time. The wedding binder was still on the kitchen counter with its color-coded tabs. She could see it from where she was sitting. Sometime around 2 in the morning, she picked up her phone and she called Daniel. She said, "I know this is not a fair thing to ask. I know this does not make any sense. But I need a way out. And I do not have one, and I need to know if you would be willing to marry me." There was silence on the other end of the line, a long silence, and then Daniel said, "Are you safe right now?" "Not yes. Not no. Not what are you talking about. Just, are you safe right now?" She said yes. He said, "Okay, let me think until morning. I will call you back." He called at 7 in the morning. He said yes. They were married at the courthouse 6 days later. 2 witnesses, no dress, no flowers, no ceremony. Just a room and a judge and 2 people making a promise that neither of them fully understood yet. It took 11 minutes. Her family did not speak to her for months. Carter went cold and then publicly unbothered, which was somehow worse than anger. There were conversations that left everyone exhausted. There was a version of her life that she had walked away from, and it did not walk away quietly. But here is what none of those people could have predicted. The marriage worked. Not right away. Not perfectly. Not without difficulty. But it worked. In the way that real things work, which is slowly and imperfectly, and with a lot of ordinary mornings where you choose the person again because you have decided they are worth choosing. Daniel cooked on weekends. He remembered things she said in passing, small details, and would bring them back weeks later in ways that made her feel genuinely seen. He never once in 7 years made her feel stupid for having an opinion. When she needed space, he gave it without making her feel guilty for needing it. When she needed him to show up, he showed up without being asked. Somehow, he always knew the difference. 2 years into the marriage, he went back to school. Night classes after full days of work. He never complained about being tired. He just came home and went to class. She asked him once if it was too much, and he said, "I am building something. It does not feel like too much when you know what you are building toward." She went back to studying landscape architecture at 30. Daniel made dinner on her class nights and left notes on the counter sometimes. Not long notes, just a sentence. A small drawing of something she had mentioned she liked. A reminder that he had noticed her. She kept every single one in a shoebox in the closet. There was a miscarriage in the 3rd year. That is all that needs to be said about it, except that it broke something in both of them for a while, and they put it back together. Slowly, carefully, together. That is the part of real partnership that nobody photographs. 7 years passed, and then, one Tuesday evening in October, almost exactly 7 years from the day they had stood in that courthouse, Sophia was reorganizing a shelf in the apartment when she found a box that had fallen behind some books. Dusty, clearly untouched for years. She carried it to the kitchen table and opened it. Inside was a stack of papers, legal documents, financial records, correspondence, certificates. She sat there for 2 hours, reading through all of it. The company Daniel had always mentioned casually, the thing he said he was still figuring out. He had been building it for years before they even met. He had completed a degree in civil engineering at night years earlier, long before she was in his life. He had quietly started a small infrastructure consulting firm while still driving, keeping it private because he did not want to present himself as something he had not yet fully become. And at the very bottom of the box was a contract. Dated 8 months ago. A government contract for a major public works project in the city, worth several $1,000,000. The company name on the contract was OG Consulting. The founder listed was Daniel Ortega. She was still sitting at the table when she heard his key in the door. He walked in. He saw her face. He saw the papers spread across the table, and he stopped in the doorway and did not say anything. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Why did you never tell me?" He came and sat down across from her, and he said, "Because I fell in love with you before any of this existed, and I needed to know that you loved who I was before it did." She thought about the diner, the cherry pie, the courthouse with its 11 minutes and 2 witnesses, the notes in the shoebox, the miscarriage, the night classes, 7 years of a man who showed up every single day without ever once asking her to notice. She said, "I have known who you were since the night you offered me pie at 2 in the morning instead of telling me everything was going to be okay." He reached. Across the table, she took his hand. Carter Flynn got married the following year. His wedding was covered in a Houston lifestyle magazine. The photographs were beautiful. Everyone looked exactly right. Sophia Ortega finished her degree and opened her own landscape architecture practice. She and Daniel bought a house with a yard big enough for a real garden. She designed it herself. There is a bench in the back corner under an oak tree where she sits in the evenings when the light is going low and the air is cooling and everything feels like exactly what it is. She says it is the most beautiful thing she has ever built. But Daniel says she is wrong. He says the most beautiful thing she ever built was the courage to walk away from the life that looked perfect and choose the one that actually was. And if you ask Sophia what she would tell herself on that bathroom floor at 2 in the morning, she would say this: "The person who will love you best is not always the one the room is looking at. Sometimes they are the one holding the door. Sometimes they are the one who remembered something small you said 3 weeks ago. Sometimes they are the one who, before they say yes or no or anything at all, asks if you are safe." Pay attention to those people. They are so much rarer than the ones who look perfect in photographs, and they are worth everything, every single thing. This was Evergleam Stories. If this story stayed with you today, share it with someone who needs to hear it right now. Subscribe and turn on that bell because what is coming next on this channel is going to hit just as hard as this one. And drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever met someone quiet who turned out to be extraordinary? I want to hear your story. I will see you in the next one.